All right, here we are. It is getting colder, which means that's right, winter is here, bringing you your top 2 baits for wintertime fishing. Now, wintertime fishing spans a lot, but these are just the lake, in the lake, general wintertime fishing. Winter is not technically kind of here. It really is. When I say wintertime fishing, I'm talking about like the middle of December through the end of January. That's winter time. As February starts to hit, in some parts of the country, we really start getting into pre-spawn action. But this, in more in the middle part, upper part of the country, that pre-spawn doesn't start until late February. So wherever wintertime fishing is, I'm going to bring you your top 2 baits that are not called a jig. This is really hard for me because I just want to say jig, 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 mini flip jig, or any other type of great jig that you like to throw. These are the 2 not called a jig. Not called a jig. Number 1 is going to be jerkbait. Jerkbait is so good this time of year. Sun is a good thing for jerkbait, and wind. Just because it's wintertime, don't run away from the wind. In the wind with a jerkbait can be a really good deal. It's a Spro mixed stick. If you're a Megabass Vision 110 kind of person, that's cool too. But we'll do stuff on that in another video. But the Mick I use, probably my favorite all-around color. It's got some chartreuse hints on the bottom of it. It's got that little gold in it, so you get a little bit of flash. These are also very good wintertime colors. You go on the Spro's website, you can see all those colors. Any shad color is really what you want to look for during the wintertime. I'm going to throw this on no more than a 7-foot rod. 6-9 is also very good, but the Cash and Icon, they have a topwater jerkbait rod, and it is a medium heavy extra fast. So it's got a really light tip, which is perfect for snapping that jerkbait. And I'm going to throw that on 12-pound fluorocarbon. Most of the time, that is what Mike McClellan, he designed this jerkbait. One of the best jerkbait fishermen there's ever been. And the cool thing about jerkbaits is that you can adjust the hook size. They come standard with number 5s on them. You can go up to 6s, and that bait will slowly float. You can go up to 4s, and the 4s are going to make that bait slowly sink. There are times when the fish want one versus the other, and that's one of the reasons I love jerkbait fishing, because you can make those different adjustments with the weight, make that bait float, make it come up. You're going to be able to jerk that thing around. You want to focus on points anywhere you find bait, around vertical structure like bluffs, around docks, potentially deeper docks, maybe even some bridge pilings, especially where there is bait present, wherever you see that. And there may be times when you have to jerk that jerkbait down and just let it kind of sit there. Or you can if you have it weighted, that bait's just going to be slowly sinking, and it comes right in their face, and then all of a sudden, bam. Bam. Okay, so that's definitely my number 1 wintertime bait. Really love that. But if you've got overcast conditions and or slick calm, sometimes they're not into it. Sometimes they're just not eating ye old mixed stick, and you need to do something else. There is another bait that really is better with a little bit of wind, but you don't necessarily have to have it. But one of the tricks, in my opinion, to this bait is not throwing it in crystal clear water. Find yourself a little bit of stain in this thing. I think it really comes alive, and you might be surprised. A lot of people might be surprised here. That's right. Look at this thing. It's not a chandelier. It's not a mini chandelier from a car. This is actually an umbrella rig, aka the Alabama rig. And you got to check your state law. Some states it's different than others, to where you can't put more than 3 hooks on some of them. Some states you can just put 5 hooks, doesn't matter. 12 hooks, doesn't matter. You can put two of these umbrella rigs together and throw them around. But the whole presence is, it's supposed to look like a school of bait fish. Striper fishermen have been using these things for a bazillion years. Okay, maybe not bazillion, maybe like 40 or 50. But they're umbrella rigs, and this one has little blades on it. Some do, some don't. As far as I'm concerned, there's really only 2 options as far as these rigs go. One, Shane's Baits makes a great umbrella rig, and Hog Farmer, those two, that's like the Cadillac. Hog Farmer's got a bunch of different models. Shane's Baits only got a couple different ones, so kind of depending on what you're looking for, in my opinion, those are the only 2 you really need to look at. There are some other good ones out there. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not even positive what this one is. I think this might be a Yumbrella. Yum makes one as well. They've made one since early on, since that thing came about. But you're going to need to throw that on a little bit heavier tackle. When it first came out, almost everybody threw it on braided line because it was a bigger presence, and a lot of people were throwing it. But now a lot of guys are going downsizing and realizing that's much better. I mean, that's a little Missile Baits 3.5-inch Shockwave right there. A lot of people are realizing these little smaller baits are much more productive than these big giant honker swim baits because these little small shad imitators coming through the water, that's what the bass are after in certain areas. Some places they might want a bigger one. You can do all kind of tricks to it, like put a bigger bait in the middle, because that's where they're going to focus. They're going to hit this middle one most of the time because it's a little bit further back. Or you can put a chartreuse one on this middle one, something a little bit different to kind of give it a little spice, give them something to zero in on, because they're going to hit this one most of the time anyway. Or if this one's kinked, or if one of them's kinked and kind of running a little funny, like running off to the side like yonder, then they'll eat that one most of the time. But like I said, they used to throw it on braid a lot, but a lot of guys started experimenting and realized that if you throw it on fluorocarbon, for whatever reason, you get more bites. Interesting. What difference would it make? I don't know. I mean, but these guys are throwing them side by side and realizing the guys throwing fluorocarbon, especially, like a 7, no bigger than, you really don't need more than about 20 fluorocarbon to throw one of these things, especially one that has got smaller baits on it. You could even get away with 17, 16, maybe even 18, whatever. Don't need to go super heavy. A flipping stick, if you don't have a specific rod for an umbrella rig, a flipping stick will work. I would go medium heavy. You don't want a total broomstick. You don't want something that you could sweep the floor with, like when you come back to the shop, you could sweep the floor. You don't want that. You want something that's got a little give to it, because remember, a lot of those when those fish bite it, they're on little smaller hooks, man. They're not on a gaff unless you have the wrong jig head on there. But you're gonna have something with a little bit of tip to it, something a little give. Cashin makes a really, really good umbrella rig rod, Alabama rig rod, whatever you want to call it. They make a really good one. It's in their core line, and so you don't have to, it's not a top end line rod. You don't have to spend a ton of money, or you could just go with any kind of big bait rod that you would throw, like a smaller glide bait. That would be also a good rod, in my opinion, because it's going to have that parabolic type bend. So when that fish loads on it, it's going to give a little bit, and then they're not coming off. You can just winch them right on in the boat. So those are my top 2 wintertime baits that are not called a jig. I can't believe it. Honorable mention, this is kind of like if one of these fell off, it would just be a single swim bait. A single swim bait can be really, really good too, especially if you see them following this thing and they won't quite commit to it. Sometimes you can throw a little single swim bait, like a little Shockwave, on just a little ball head. Just throw that on a spinning rod, 8-pound test, and just kind of slow roll it through there. That can be good too. But there's a lot of really good wintertime baits. I know that. I get that. Underspins are fantastic in the wintertime. Silver buddies are really good. A drop shot and a Neko rig, those can be really good in the wintertime. So whatever your favorite wintertime bait is, drop it down there. That's not a jig, because we all know a jig is good in the wintertime. If it's not a jig, drop it down in there. If it's not called an umbrella rig or a jerk bait, drop it down in there. Let us know what your favorite wintertime bait is, and we can all do a little learning. And stay warm out there, be safe, and catch a giant, because that's what bites in the wintertime. A lot of times, that's when them big ones bite.